Now, before I begin this presentation, I have a really simple question. Are you enlightened? Do you stand in God's light or do you stand in the darkness? And that's all what enlightenment means. It's simply a matter of, do you stand in God's light or do you stand in the darkness? When it comes to enlightenment, there's no complicated theories. There's no need to go back and forth about, oh, I'm enlightened, you're not enlightened. So nothing about that. It's a very simple question of, do you stand with good or do you stand with evil? Enjoy the presentation. Hey guys, Rudy here. I've been meaning to make a video about this topic, which I guess most people would call spiritual enlightenment. The Christians call it an epiphany. There's different names for it. I believe it's the Zen Buddhists or the Hindus who call it they call it satori, which just means a realization, sudden enlightenment. And I decided to do a face cam, so it'd be a little more personal, because it's going to be a little more personal. I've talked about it before in my You Arcane video, but it's like not a 50-minute, but a 40-minute long video. It'd be easy to miss because it's like 30 minutes into it, and most people's attention span, most people don't stick around to the end because it just seems to be the case with longer videos. I like making longer videos though. Some people like them, some people don't. But looking on YouTube Studio, the typical engagement is like the first 10 minutes, first 8 to 10 minutes. People start clocking out, so it's like they're gonna miss it. It's a part in the video where I talk about me. I talk about my story. And enlightenment does have a lot to do with it. And the way it happens is it's something completely out of your control. And I'm not saying I'm floating in the clouds, I'm not flying around like Superman. It's nothing like that, but it does feel like I'm walking on water and dancing on the ceiling at times. Because it's, once you realize that I'm 39, I'm about to be 40 in November, but I was around 36, maybe 36, 37 when I had achieved enlightenment, quote unquote. But it's achieving is the wrong word. It's like, and enlightenment's the wrong word. Enlightenment is just like, kind of like just, it's an epiphany. I think the Christians have it right when they use the word epiphany. But I don't really hear Christians using that word, so it's a little strange to me. Maybe that's just something I made up, to be honest. But epiphany is a good word. Like, it really is, in my opinion. It's maybe a better word than satori, or even a better word than enlightenment or nirvana, all that nonsense. Which is just, for me personally, it was just a realization that all of my past traumas, the traumas involving my parents, all the adults in my life, were affecting my whole life. From the moment my father died, probably before that, but definitely the moment my father died is when the real trauma began, and that kind of dictated my childhood up until a few years ago, and it's still dictating it. You can't really escape. But once you realize that you can't escape, you kind of learn to live with it a little better and have a better understanding about how people, what they're going through, the struggles that they have with their parents, with their family. The video I made, Your Toxic Familia, Your Toxic Family, goes over this. So if y'all want me to go over that, just go check out that video. I keep bringing up that video a lot because I think it really is, it sounds like I tune my own horn, but I really do think, I really put a push pin on what the problem is with most, like 99.9% of people, 99.999% of people. Can't even say 99, right? Because that would be 99 out of 100. And And to say that 1 out of 100 people didn't go through that would be a mistake, because I see well over 100 people per night at the job I work. I just got off work, by the way. The job I work, it's like I see well over 100 people, and they're all a mess, every single one. I know it sounds like I'm passing judgment on people I don't know, but I can see it in their body language. I can see it in their relationships. I can see it with their children. The majority that come in at night are women, and they're a hot mess. That's the best way I can put it. But I'm gonna talk about me for a little bit, because I'll just say it's my journey, right? So the cheesy thing to kind of say, I'll just go with it, because I don't have any other words to describe it. So my father died when I was 5. And like I said, that's when the trauma begins, because a little boy, especially young boys, losing their fathers at that young age. It doesn't matter if it's death or a divorce, or they just go out for milk one day and don't come back, which I know is the case for a lot of people. But even in those situations, I'm going to kind of go on a tangent just a tiny bit. In those situations, a lot of the times, not all the time, but a lot of the times, it's the crazy mothers that drive the father away. They don't want the father around. In some cases, they want to live on welfare, so they chase the father away. They say, white man's coming to... this is going to seem kind of funny or odd that I'm saying it this way, but white man's coming at the door to do a welfare check to see if there's any men in the house. And that did happen. Like, that happened all the time. I grew up on welfare. Again, more trauma that my mother put me through. It's because after my father died, there wasn't a very large gap between my father dying and her putting other men between her and I. And I needed, it's bad enough I needed a father, and I really needed my mother. But she, she was selfish, and most people are. And I understand that about people. And that's part of that was part of the epiphany. So growing up as a boy, a young boy in a single mother household with boyfriends going in and out, that's when the trauma really starts, because you develop a twisted concept of what relationships are, of what marriage is about, of what having kids is about, and that's what we're going through now. I talked about it in my video where I'll go over the what was it called, the death situation with the boomer generation in Japan. And right afterwards, I got into it about Massacre of the Innocents and abortion and all that, and how it's related, and the hippie movement, the anti-family movement, which I know we're not talking about this, but the peace symbol and the hippie movement were definitely anti-family, anti-Christian movements. I don't give a fuck what people say. When they say it was about nuclear disarmament, it wasn't. It was not. It was a war on boys, essentially. A war on families, war on men, war on the unborn children. That's what it was about. But anyway, back to the topic at hand. So I went my whole life. I got away from my mother in my 20s, came to Louisiana to be with my wife. Her and I grew together in that way. Her and I grew in that way through our marriage. Not a whole lot of money, but we got out of that. We got out of poverty, and like I said, my mother was always on welfare. And to kind of go off on a little tangent, it's not really going off on a tangent because it is related, but she was trying to teach me the wrong way. She was trying to teach me to gain the system. She was trying to teach me to gain the system. She was trying to teach me how to be in debt, putting credit cards in my name as a minor, by the way. All those shenanigans that single mothers do to their children that some of y'all might not be aware of, especially in the United States. It's very, very common. Let's just put it that way. Putting them in between, as I mentioned that. Being on welfare, trying to teach me that I can be on welfare too. And she didn't want to work. Really was the bottom line. She didn't want to work. And she just wanted to go out and party and go to bars and hang out with guys. That's all it was about. Simple. Very simple. And it's fine. I've talked about this before too. I'm actually grateful that she was like that. I'm just grateful because she taught me what a parent shouldn't do, for one thing. And I always knew what the deal was with her. There was no second guessing. Like, for instance, her sister, my aunt, called her Tia. My aunt was crazy Catholic lady, and she was really nice sometimes and a completely crazy bitch other times. And it was really, really hard to gauge when the crazy bitch was going to come out. And she never, like I said before, she never abused me. She never talked bad about me because my mother was a bad bitch. So basically, my aunt wouldn't dare treat me a certain way, but she treated her kids pretty badly. She has one older son and 2 younger daughters, and her husband was weak. Like, her husband was just a complete cuckold, just simp, bound down to wife beat. I talked about that before. It's like he's just the guy who gets ran over by the wife. But she never abused me or anything. But my mother was a bad bitch, so that just wasn't gonna happen. So what happened next? Years went by. Good decade went by. She's living in Texas, I'm living in Louisiana, so I got a pretty big gap between her and I. Thank God. Because that's what you need to do. Get the hell away from your mother. Just get away. And I got away from her. And at first it started off reuniting with my dead father. And it was, I don't know if anyone here is familiar with Jordan Peterson's biblical lectures. This is a biblical lecture series that Peterson has where he goes over the entirety of Genesis. It's really, 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 really good. And he basically convinced me, well, not convinced, but he led me back into Christianity, and I became a Christian again. But that was actually a little bit before that. I discovered guys like Alan Watts, and I discovered Taoism, Buddhism, Hinduism, all of that, and I started realizing that they were all like Christianity, essentially. So I became a Christian again through all of that. And while I was at work, and while listening to one of his biblical lectures, it might have been like during one of the Abrahamic stories. It may be part like 12 or 13. It's one of the parts after number 10 on YouTube. You can check it out. So one where he talks about Abraham. I don't exactly remember what he said that caused the epiphany, but it made me realize that I don't know. It made me realize that God was always with me. And so what happened in an instant? It was like I was just standing in the middle of the aisle. I was working. I remember what I was working on. I was working on the paper goods, which is like the toilet paper and paper plates and all that. And the aisle I was working on, just standing in the middle of the aisle, and it just hits me. A realization that I'm my father. I'm my ancestors. Like, I'm like all of them rolled into one. I wouldn't be there. I wouldn't be here without them. And that's when I realized that God was real. And that my father, and that's when I realized that my father never left me. Like, he may have passed away, his body may have gone away, decayed in the dirt, but he didn't leave me. He didn't want to leave me. And the only reason I knew that is because I was a father, and that's the way I feel about my daughter. And I realized if I feel that way about my own daughter, he must have felt that way about me. Like, he didn't want to leave me. Dying is just something that happened to his body. And Den Keeper once did a video where he was talking about he had a similar experience. I don't know if it had anything to do with his father, but I'm gonna have to paraphrase because I don't remember exactly what he said. But he says something to the effect of he had to consult his ancestors. And like the minute he said that, I was like, yeah, dude, like as schizo and crazy as that sounds, like that's what it is. That's what it feels like. Like you realize you don't have any answers, and then like almost in a desperate attempt, you automatically begin, I don't know, like go into the Father, like literally go into the Father in heaven. Like, you go to God, you go to your ancestors, which would be God. The further you go back in time, like your grandfather and their grandfather and their grandfather, or their great 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 grandfather, and it just keeps going all the way back until you get to the source, like the singularity, which would be God. It's like, that's when it hit me. That's when it hit me in an instant. And I'm at work, dude. Like, enlightenment isn't something you're in control of. Epiphanies aren't something you have control of. You can't sit and meditate under a tree for 70 days hoping to have an epiphany or have an enlightenment or reach nirvana. That's stupid. It's not going to happen. Don't try. Like, stop trying. Just realize that it can't be done. Like, you can't do anything. The ego mind, this flesh, this ego, the brain inside your skull, the ego mind can't do it. They can't. You can't. You can't do anything. Stop trying. But it's not hopeless. Because and after that happened, I realized that I was connected to the source, which would be God. And it's not even like it's not even a case of me saying, oh, I believe in God now. No, it's not a belief. I don't believe in God. That's the thing. It's not a belief. It's a knowing. You just know. You have the knowledge. It's just there. God just is. He isn't a genie in the sky. He isn't anywhere. He's just there. It's just, I know this sounds fucking schizo to y'all, but that's what enlightenment is. It's like, it doesn't make sense. The English language is so limited. So limited. You can't put it into words. You just can't. So some time goes by, and that was like maybe, I want to say 2016. If I'm getting that right. 2016. No, 2018. The only reason I know that because Trump had been in administration for 2 years. I know it seems weird that I'm bringing that up, but there is a reason. I'm not going to say. It's not important. It was 2018. I know it was. Because I discovered Peterson 2 years into Trump's administration, and that's when this conservative thing started taking off. And I don't want to say Peterson kind of spearheaded that, but it had a lot to do with it. Guys like Ben Shapiro. I don't listen to Ben Shapiro or Peterson really, rather. I listen to Peterson's old videos still, but I don't know what's with that dude. He's kind of got off the deep end with this conservatism shit. And I'm like, he made a video called Conservative Manifesto, and I listened to it for like 20 minutes, and I was like, is this dude lost his fucking mind? Like, you you don't need a fucking manifesto if you're a conservative. God damn. Like, he's the arbiter of handing out manifestos or writing manifestos. Just so like, ooh. I was like, this dude is so... I unsubscribed him at that point. It's like, I can't listen to this dude anymore. I don't know what the fuck is going on with his brain. I don't know if that trip to Russia really fucked him up. Or if he's being controlled by somebody. Wink, wink. You know? Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. But anyway, I still like him. I'll listen to his old lectures. I don't have nothing against him, but it's like, I'm just not dealing with that anymore. Anyway, so first enlightenment. There's two. Second one was with my mother when I forgave her. So I forgave my mother. When I realized that I was just like her and that she put her spirit into me. And I wouldn't be like, who else's spirit would I have? Like, I was reunited with my father, but it was more than that. Like, my mother's spirit, her ideology, her ideas, her personality were still in me. And it's like, I needed to be exorcised. I needed an exorcism. And it was thanks to Jesse Lee Peterson that I realized these things. And here's the thing, I listened to Jesse for like 2.5 years before it even clicked with me. Like, he had talked about the forgiving your parents thing so many times, and I just didn't get it. Like, I would listen to him because he was, he's a funny guy. He's really funny. He's just entertaining. So I was listening to him. He put Christianity into a whole new light for me in a big, big ways. This dynamic between husband and wife, dynamics between father and son, mother and children, yada, yada. So I had the realization that I had to forgive my mother because I was still angry with her. Once I realized that her spirit, her the spider mother spirit was still in me. The Medusa spirit was still in me because I still had anger. Like I was still angry at the things she did to me when I was a kid. And the minute I realized that I didn't have any right to be angry because she couldn't help herself, like she had no control over that. Her parents screwed her up in a big way. Like her mother screwed her up in a big way. And I couldn't be angry with her after that. But the next step was actually calling her because I couldn't see her in person. She's way the hell in Texas. It's like a 12-hour drive. It couldn't be done, and I wasn't willing to do that. And I remember it was right before. It's a very cowardly way I did it, in a sense, because this was right before she was going to have surgery on not a malignant, but a benign tumor in the back of her nose, like in the back of her nasal cavity. So I was like, I need to do it now or do it never, because tomorrow isn't guaranteed. We only have today. That old cheesy phrase. So I went ahead and did it. I called her up and I was shaking like I had my phone, and I was literally shaking like, dude, what is wrong with me? That's when it hit me like, wow, I really need to do this, because I called her. Here's the strange part about it. She had called me the week before and apologized to me for like a lot of things. Like she was sorry that my brother's epileptic, so she was apologizing for basically paying too much attention to him because he was epileptic, and he was 12 years older than me. Aside from the epilepsy, he had a lot of behavioral issues, like being in jail all the time, screwing around with women, having babies out of wedlock, all of that good stuff. And she apologized for that, and I was never angry about that. That was the strangest thing about it. I was never ever angry about that. That never bothered me growing up. It was the other things that bothered me, the drinking and the welfare and the sleeping around with men and all that got to me. But anyway, she apologized to me. I accepted her apology, and I remember getting off the phone with her and thinking, what the hell was that about? Like I'm supposed to be apologizing to her. And about a week later, I was like, screw it. I'm going to call her back and tell her, look, I'm really appreciative that you apologized to me last week, but I need to apologize to you because I hated you all my life, and I realized that wasn't fair to you because you've gone through things that I'm not aware of, and we had a long conversation, and she thanked me, like which is not the norm from what I'm realizing, because I've heard a lot of testimonies from people on Jesse's show, and the mothers do not take it well when you try to apologize to them and forgive them. But she took it very well. She was very mature about it. She realized all the crazy shit she did affected me and it drove me away. And like I said, I'm grateful that she drove me away, because I wouldn't be here now if I wouldn't have a daughter and all that good stuff. If she hadn't drove me away and did what she did, she taught me some very valuable lessons through her selfishness. And she died a year and a half later. Complications from that surgery that I brought up. It's surgery that she shouldn't have had, but she was kind of the doctors kind of convinced her to do it. It was completely unnecessary, but it is what it is now. She died a year and a half later, and I have a suspicion that my forgiveness had something to do with her letting go the way she did, because she was damn near a vegetable like the last 8 months of her life. So she was just not lucid the whole year of 2020, which was the start of the big C. Big C. You all know what I'm talking about. And after that, like the moment, and I'm shaking the whole time, by the way. I'm on the phone like this, like shaking in my boots. I'm like, oh my God, like, it's like I need to forgive this lady because she has this much control over me. And she wasn't really an overbearing mother in a lot of ways. She wasn't that bad of a mother. And I'm shaking in my boots, like why am I shaking? I'm calling my mother to forgive her, and I'm shaking like a leaf, like a grown-ass man afraid of his mom. And that's when I realized I really needed to forgive her. So that happened, and I swear the very moment I got off the phone with her, it was like a rock. The rock on my back was gone. And it was like I was dancing on the ceiling, and I couldn't believe it. It was enlightenment number 2, the best way I can put it. And like I said, it's something I had no control over. All I had to do was forgive, And even that wasn't free will either. It may seem like it, but it wasn't. It was agency, that's for sure, because there is such a thing as free agency. To me, free will and free agency are two different things. But I forgave her, and I've been free ever since, I want to say. And I still have little issues now and then. I get frustrated with things still, and that's part of the thing. Like, it doesn't mean like, oh, I'm some Buddha sitting under a tree, you know, for 70 days and I'm just calm all the time. I am calm 9 times out of 10, but there's moments where the situation calls for action, if that makes sense. But it's not out of anger. Like, as soon as I forgave my mother, my anger was gone, like completely gone. Like, it was so crazy. And all my emotions after that were just so phony. Like, I realized that I wasn't me, and the real me is gonna have to grow into this body, like almost like a new soul in a way. And it was strange with my father when I realized him and I are one, because I really felt as if I was my father. Like the moment he died, him and I were together. But like an old man trapped in a little boy's body with a little boy mind, and not really having the maturity or the intelligence to really comprehend what happened. And he died right in front of me too, so I mean, I watched him have the stroke that killed him. I remember him screaming really loud. My mother was asleep on the couch. I tried to wake her up, and she was probably hungover for all I know. It's funny thinking on it, guys. Like, it's not so serious. It really isn't. I'm gonna drive and talk for a little bit. But I wanted to do the face cam. If I'm done with the story. Stories, plural. If y'all want to shut the video off right now, you can. I'm just gonna drive home and talk. And I want to talk about Jesus and Buddha for a second, because a lot of people have this twisted idea of what enlightenment is, and they seem to think it's Neo flying in the air, or Neo jumping off a building and being able to fly. And I don't know where this idea comes from. It's nothing like that. It's nothing like that. It's really not. I'm still in this old smelly body. I'm still the same person that I was 5 years ago, 6 years ago. In a sense, I still have the same hobbies. Like, I don't need to drop the material. I'm already aware that I'm a soul in the body. And the moment I forgave my mother, it was like I said, the rock was lifted off my shoulders. It was like I was floating on cloud 9. But the thing is with Buddha, I don't know his story verbatim, but it goes along the lines of, he was a prince who was sheltered. His father sheltered him because he didn't want him to grow. He wanted him to be a king. He didn't want him to grow up in the nasty world that it is. Which is the spider mother story, right? The spider mother story. And that's not the way you raise a son. You have to expose your children, well, not expose them, but let your children be exposed to the evils of the world so they can handle adulthood. And I don't remember Buddha's real name. He was a prince. The story goes that he snuck out of the castle or wherever, the palace, and roaming the alleys, and he saw the lepers, he saw the old ladies with crooked teeth and gnarled fingers, and, twisted bones, and he didn't understand what he was seeing because he's been sheltered his whole life. So realizing that this other world was, like I said, I'm paraphrasing because I don't know the story word for word, but he wanted to experience the world, in the unsheltered world, and I don't blame him. So he went from a prince to a vagabond, essentially, roamed the countryside and trying to find nirvana, trying to find peace, trying to find enlightenment, seeking, like he was a seeker, he was seeking. And the story goes, I'm probably butchering this, but he sat under a tree for like months. It could have been months. It might have been a few days. You know, these stories are exaggerated, so I'm going to exaggerate it. He was sitting under a tree for 4 months. Let's just say that. And attempting to seek nirvana. And from what I heard, a little girl or a little child offered him some soup. It was like maybe potato soup or something like that. And he accepted it, and it was the best thing he's ever eaten in his life. And that's when he achieved enlightenment. Not even achieved. Like I said, he didn't do anything special. It's just something that happened to him. Like Buddha wasn't anyone special. He was just a man in a smelly body like ours. And as for Jesus, unfortunately, the Bible doesn't go over his enlightenment, but that's Buddha's enlightenment. Jesus' enlightenment, I have no idea. The Bible doesn't go over that at all. All we know is that one day Jesus is born, he's 12 years old, and then suddenly he's 30, and then he dies. He gets crucified at 33. The Bible conveniently omits his enlightenment, and probably for a good reason, because they give us the story of the Buddha. I say they, you know what I mean by they. They let us have the story of Buddha. They will not let us have the story of Jesus in its entirety. Because I have a suspicion that his enlightenment is something that every man and woman can achieve if they only knew. And that's dangerous. Like, that is dangerous. You do not want people awake. You want them asleep. So from age 12 to 30, at some point, Jesus became enlightened. We don't know how, we don't know when. All we know is that it happened. And the rumor is that he, when he became an adult, he journeyed to India and learned about Hinduism. Supposedly, I don't really know. I don't even know if Hinduism was around back then. I'm pretty sure it was. But it's like Jesus was just a man. I've talked about this before. Jesus was just a man. Buddha was just a man. And Jesus was a special case, even more so, because we have more about his adult life than we do Buddha's, I believe. The prince, whoever. And the thing about Jesus is that he understood people for the mess that they were. He forgave them. He understood their plight. He understood what they were going through. He understood human beings, first and foremost. And anybody is capable of that if they just keep their eyes open. If they just see people for the walking clowns that they are, the walking mess that they are. And you're going to find those one or two people that are awake. And I think, at least for me, and a lot of people too, who have a lot of testimonies, especially on Jesse's podcast and his church service, where I've heard so many testimonies, and my coworker Karina too, because she went through the same thing I did. Like the spices in the soup are a little different, but Karina and I went through the same exact thing. Every human being is going through the exact same thing, without a doubt. It's just the story's slightly twisted, slightly different, but I promise you, my story is no different than your story. But like I said, the details are a little different. But like I said, Karina went through the exact same thing I did. The moment she forgave her father, she was reunited with her father, and she has the privilege of knowing her father physically. The minute she forgave him, she was back with God. And that's the way she's described it to me. I don't think she has a problem with me telling her story. That's what happened to her. And it's like, she forgave her father because once she realized that everything that she's gone through is because her mother lied to her about her father, like all the hardships that she went through is because of her mother's lies. And that's the story of a lot of people. I mean a lot of people, y'all. I mean, you all need to confront your mothers, because they are lying about your father. I don't really give a damn who you are. I don't care if you're in a 2-parent household, your mother and father get along. I guarantee it that your mother has lied about your father in some regard in order to get you to hate him. That is the most consistent thing I've heard when it comes to talking with people. Consistent, like grandmothers too, like y'all have no idea. It's so bananas, y'all. It's so bananas. And nobody sees it. Like they walk around thinking that their problems are because of what they did. And it is to a degree, but If they just realized, if they just had the epiphany that their parents are the reason that they're in their mess right now, I mean, they'd probably be angry at first, but then they would come to realize that, at least they should, they come to realize that it's their parents who were lied to as well, and their parents were lied to, and so on and so forth, until we go back to the ultimate deceiver, which would be Satan, Lucifer. Calling them Lucifers, too many accolades in my opinion, but it is what it is. Anyway, guys, I think that's all I got to say. If I have more, I'll just I'll make another video. Like I said, with the face cam, I wanted to make it more personal. Y'all need to see my face while I'm talking, just to drive it home that I am a person with feelings, feelings that I'm slowly getting rid of, one by one, that I'm shedding off like a snake, like the snake that I am. You know, Mexicans are snakes. They're all snakes. I know that for a fact. Don't argue with me. Any Hispanics out there, y'all know you are snakes. All right, I love y'all guys. Have a good day. Bye-bye. How's it going, everybody? I'm gonna add on to the video I recorded yesterday, talking about my experiences with Satori, with Enlightenment, having your eyes open, and I think most people in the truth community wouldn't consider what they know about the world, what they're figuring out about the world. They wouldn't consider it enlightenment, and that's fine. To me, it's a kind of enlightenment. Having your eyes open to how the world is working is a big part of it. So the big question is, what do you do with it? Like, what do you do with your newfound insight about the way the world is working? The way, I'll just use myself as an example. With the way the world is working, with the way the dynamics in relationships between men and women, because that's one of the bigger emphasis on my channel. And I'm sticking to it because, to me, I think it's super important that people understand what's kind of that people understand what is actually governing their lives, and which is the trauma they experience as children. And I'm not letting that go. Like, that is axiomatic to me. And don't believe it. Don't believe it. It doesn't affect me if you don't think that. Okay? I'm fine with that. We can have a debate about it. If you want to talk about it, I'm fine with it. Leave a comment. But so what do you do with your newfound insight? What do you do with God's knowledge after that? And the short and simple answer is nothing. You don't do anything with it. Because if you have any precepts, if you have any ideas about what you should do with it, for instance, a lot of people in the truth community, they think they need to go out and tell the world about how politics is fake and etc. Don't do that. Like, just don't do it, because it's been proven time and time again. It's a disaster. You can't go around telling your family and your friends about this new information that you have, because they just won't understand it. You'll be speaking a different language. You'll be in a different reality. You'll be speaking in tongues, according to other people. They'll look at you like you're crazy. You're lucky if they don't get the authorities involved. All right. So, on that premise alone, don't do anything. Like, keep it to yourself. There will be a chance when it's time to speak up, and that's when you speak up. You'll know it. Like, you'll know when it's time to speak up. You'll meet a kindred spirit. You'll meet somebody who's on your wavelength, and I've experienced that. I've met a few people who just have a connection. You can kind of tell that they're seeking, and that's all it takes, really. And that's the only part of the free will aspect that you have, and it's more of the lines of free agency that you're seeking. Like, you have questions about the world, you have questions about politics, you have questions about, why am I suffering? Like, you look up to the sky and you go, oh God, why am I suffering? Just let me see. And I didn't do that specifically, but I honestly think I've always been seeking. It's like the moment my father died is when I began seeking. Like, why God? Like, why did you take my father? And I've been over this on previous videos where my father expired. He passed away at the perfect moment. And I tell my daughter all the time, we talk about things like this every now and then, not too much because she's only 11, and that's a lot for a little kid to understand. But I think we don't give children enough credit. But anyway, I talk to her and I tell her about these things. I'm like, I want you to know that the way my father died at the perfect moment, I'll die at the perfect moment. And I tell her, it doesn't make sense to you right now. And the moment I die, it probably won't make sense to you then. But as you grow into being an adult and being a human being in this world, you'll slowly come to understand that I expired at the perfect moment. And I just have to leave it in God's hands at that point, because there's nothing I can do. The best thing I can do is talk to her about these things and try to have a dialogue with her, try to get her to understand. So I think another big question regarding this Buddhism and Jesus thing and Enlightenment thing is, how do you know you've achieved something? And I think, and to me, anybody who's listening and you're a truther and you're a seeker and you notice these things about the world, you already know. Like, to me, that is a form of enlightenment. And it's not literally, and I know a lot of people don't like that word, but you're awake, right? Your eyes are open. To me, that's enlightenment. That's an epiphany, a sudden realization about the world, the way the world is structured, and isn't what we're told. We've been lied to as children. We've been lied to by teachers. We've been lied to as parents. The politicians who've corrupted everything they touched, the corporations, the food you're eating, all of these things are part of that enlightening experience. So it's very, very simple to know if you've quote-unquote achieved some kind of enlightenment or awakeness. So that's how you know. To me, it's super, super simple. It doesn't take some guru jackass to tell you these things. You don't need me to tell you these things. You just have it within you. You have the inner knowledge, you have the inner wisdom. And that's all it takes. That's all it takes. And I talked about it in my previous recording about the type of enlightenment Buddha had, which I don't really know. Like, I don't know his story, to be honest. I'm only going off the mainstream, which is, it's not something that I just studied. To me, it's not as easy to study as the Bible is, because Jesus' story in the Bible is very, very relatable. At least, like, Jesus isn't some guy who, like, I think Alan Watts was the guy who coined the phrase, the Catholic Church kicked Jesus up the ladder. They kicked him up the stairs. They put him on such a high pedestal, and you'll see Christians who do this, especially the Catholics. They put Jesus on such a high standard, such a high pedestal, that so many people think that he's God, that his enlightenment is unattainable to the average person, and it's absolutely attainable, like, without a doubt. And I don't know what he did, and it doesn't matter, because the things Jesus says and the way Jesus acts says it all. He even told his people, he told his disciples, greater acts you shall do. Like, he even said, I don't know the scripture, like, he said something along the lines of, why do you call me good? Only God is good. Only my Father in heaven is good. Basically insinuating that he's nobody, and if he's God, why would God refer to God up in heaven when he's on earth? It doesn't make sense. It's never made sense. And I don't know, these nutty Christians come up with these things, but this is the mainstream narrative where Jesus is this unattainable holy man who casted miracles and, I don't know, split the seas and all that. And I don't think that's in there, but I'm just making that up. But you get my point, where it's like he's been put on such a high tier that the average person doesn't understand that their own experience is enough to to achieve enlightenment. Like, their own experience is enough to guide them in their own lives. I know it's kind of crazy to say it this way, and I don't know if I can really make sense out of it, because like I've said many times, we're stuck in the duality of language. It's just the way it goes. But after you wake up, I'm going to go back to this, what do you do with it? Because your family isn't going to understand you. Even if you're married with children, they're not going to understand the crazy things you say because you're speaking in tongues. And I want to give the example of, I think it's in Mark, in the beginning of Mark, where Jesus goes back to his hometown, and I believe he's asked to give a sermon, right? And he starts doing it. He starts talking to his people, like in his own hometown, where his brothers and sisters and cousins are. And the people in the congregation or in the whatever, they're like, "Who's this guy? Like, isn't this so and so's brother? Isn't this so and so's, cousin? Isn't that Joseph's son, the carpenter? Like, who is this dude? Like, basically." And that's when Jesus realized that he was a stranger in his own hometown. And he basically said to his disciples, "I can't perform any miracles here." Because the people were blind. They just saw him as the son of the carpenter or the cousin of whoever, and that's all they saw him as. They didn't see him as a man with wisdom to depart, like to give out like bread and fish. And that's what to me, that's what the fish and bread metaphor is. The handing out of wisdom. He handed out crumbs of wisdom. He took crumbs of wisdom and turned them into loaves of bread and fish. To me, that's what that story is, because it's in the same, it's in Mark as well, that little bit where he duplicates the fish and the bread. How will we feed these people? It's like 5,000 people, something like that. And his disciples like, how are we going to feed these people? And, Jesus looks up to the sky and he just makes it so. Like, that's you. Dude, that is you. You're the manifester. You're the reality generator being. You create this reality. It is your toy. It's your playground. And I think that was the point of that story. Like, you're walking the path of Jesus, like this same issue that Jesus had in his own hometown, where his own family is kind of shunning him and not really understanding what he's saying, and they're too busy focused on the label of son of a carpenter, for instance. Your family is going to do that to you. Like, who the hell are you? Like, what are you? They're going to tell you these things when you wake up and you try to speak to them. It's like, well, you're going to come to the realization, if you haven't already, that you can't talk to your family about these things because they're not going to understand. You're going to have an easier time getting through the strangers than you are with your own blood family, your own wife or your own husband. They're going to look at you like you're crazy. Your own family will stab you in the back before a stranger does. And that's the cold hard facts, man, because my whole video about your toxic family was about that subject. And I'm sticking to it because that's the way human beings act. That's the story of Jesus. That's the story of Buddha. And I don't really care if you think that for an instant that you're not on the same tier, if you're not on the same step on the ladder as Jesus or Buddha, that's your fault, dude. Like you got a lot of growing to do if you think that. Like, for real. And I mean it. Like, I'm not trying to be mean or nasty or ugly. That's just the bottom line. That when you're talking with your family and they're just not understanding you, every person in the truther community can relate to that story. And that's what these stories are about. Every single person can relate to Cain and Abel. Every single person can relate to Adam and Eve. Every single couple can relate to Adam and Eve. Girlfriend, boyfriend. I don't care if you're a man with another man. You're going to have the Adam and Eve story play out in real time in your relationship. And it's going to happen. With your blood family, the story of Cain, same shit over and over and over again. The same stupid story is being told over and over again. And you blind people are so hung up on this idea of, oh, they're just stories in the Bible. Okay, all right, man, they're just stories in the Bible. Stick with that. Keep going with that, and see how far it gets you. I really don't care. I don't care who reads the Bible. It's probably bullshit that's been told in other cultures that are far older than Christianity, that are older than Greek and Roman times, and I'm pretty sure it is. I'm not saying that Christianity's the way. I'm saying that you can't help but repeat these stories because that's the story of human nature. You can't escape. That is inescapable. If you have a mother, if you have a father, it's inescapable. You can't get away for a second. I don't care how awake you are. I don't care how many 9/11 videos you watch. I don't care, what asshole truther you're listening to on some other network, whether it's YouTube or Dailymotion or whatever dumb website. They're going through the same crap you're going through. I don't care their subscriber count, etc., etc., etc. Anyway, guys, hope I didn't come off too nasty. I'm not. I guarantee you, when I'm saying these things, it is not aimed at any specific person. I've seen so many comments saying similar things about enlightenment and Christianity and Jesus and Buddha. This is not aimed towards anybody specific. All right? Anyway, guys, y'all have a great day. Hopefully this will be the last recording I do regarding this subject. Well, not the subject, but the last recording I do for this, how do I put it? Like this video and this audio recording and the last video will be kind of lumped together. And this should be the end of this segment. I'm making more videos, obviously. This is just an extra long one because I think it's a big topic. And the subject will probably get brought up again, as it always does. Anyway, guys, have a nice day. Bye-bye.